the Director of Clinical Trials Administration for PHSA's Corporate Research Services, joined from a few members of the team today who will introduce as we go through. But I'm presenting to you today with gratitude from the lands of the Lekwungen peoples in sunny Victoria, BC. And I just want to thank Children's and Women's here for giving me the opportunity to share an overview of our clinical trial support services that are available to all clinical researchers across PHSA. So we have a full agenda, but it may get a little shorter if individuals aren't able to join the link to share their stories. But starting with an overview here of we're going to start with a bit of an introduction, and I will provide an overview of the CTMS program. And then I'm going to hand over to Andrew Poznikoff to speak about our quality program. And then ideally, we will have featured presentations by trusted researchers from Children's and Women's who are going to share their experiences with real-time CTMS and with our clinical trial monitoring services. And then we hope to have some time for questions, but know that you can always email us if you have any questions or would like to learn more. I want to start by answering one of the most popular questions we receive when we're asked about our services, which is, how do you guys fit into the greater PHSA landscape? Who do you serve? So hopefully this org chart helps explain a little bit how we have these centralized research services and a really strong matrix reporting structure. So we acknowledge that there are well-established clinical research infrastructure within BC Cancer and BC Children's Hospital. Notably, BC Cancer has this really robust quality assurance program, but our centralized services were established to bridge the gap and really make sure that all teams across PHSA are well served. And so it's important for anyone that's on here from any of PHSA's 5 research institutes, so that's Cancer, Children's, Women's, Center for Disease Control and Mental Health, or Vaccine Evaluation Center, smaller health improvement networks, and our provincial clinical programs, anywhere clinical research is happening at PHSA. And this isn't just limited to regulated clinical trials. So, and hopefully, with this strong matrix reporting structure, it really supports a collaborative approach and efficient delivery of provincial services. Thanks to PHSA's research roadmap investment over the past 3 years, we've built this wonderful team of subject matter experts to deliver these 3 pillars of support that are available for clinical researchers. And we don't have dedicated time today to touch on this 3rd pillar of data analytics and reporting, but this critical pillar really amplifies the impact of the other 2, and you'll see it woven into everything that we do. Our business analyst, Kai Lee, is on the call, I think, here, and always happy to support you with improved oversight and optimized processes that come from these data-driven insights. And this offer extends to our regional health authority partners because our group really believes in the power of provincial harmonization. So I'm going to jump right into the provincial CTMS program, which is administered by our PHSA Corporate Research Services team. The focus of the whole program is to make it easier to conduct clinical research. So a CTMS is essentially a cloud-based software platform that allows you to manage clinical trial study visits, milestones, regulatory documents, and financial data in one centralized location. And this is a provincial CTMS program. So with a nod to folks on the call from Michael Smith Health Research BC today, we partner with them to deliver this program, and they support CTMS implementation for the regional health authorities. We do receive some provisional implementation funding from Michael Smith, and we participate in advisory structures, shared governance, and provincial reporting. So this is what the provincial program looks like. Implementation started with BC Cancer back in 2019. So they mandated the use of real-time CTMS in early 2019. Their executives had this vision of becoming a world-class research organization, and they really felt that the CTMS and corresponding eDocs regulatory document system was necessary to achieve this goal. We expanded the program to include other PHSA research organizations in 2020. And as we expand, the impetus for CTMS use, it's not driven by mandate anywhere outside of BC Cancer. It's driven by usually issues identified during monitoring or just a desire to be Health Canada audit ready for regulated clinical trials. And across PHSA, it's been growing a lot over the past couple of years. We now have about 500 active clinical trials being managed by over 1,000 active CTMS users at PHSA. And a CTMS user is a coordinator, a manager, a nurse, pharmacist, physician, finance clerk, anybody that might touch a trial or a research study. And this is significant because the growth at PHSA has almost doubled in the past couple of years, number of users, and this has mostly been outside BC Cancer. So the uptake across the province has been really strong. So moving on to how does the CTMS make it easier to conduct research? I just want to go through a few of these key system benefits that are focused on being efficient, the centralized support that we provide for both implementation and sustainment, driving financial stewardship, superior business analytics with customized data reporting, and then finally, enhanced functionality that comes about every time new features are regularly introduced to the system. Starting with the first benefit, which is really the improved clinical research processes. So this universal system captures all clinical trial activities. So this is the idea here, to get rid of those Excel spreadsheets and shared folders and have this system where the entire study team has a common portal to access the exact same trial information. The processes are very standardized. So for tracking study visits, this simplifies coordinator processes, reduces training time, and makes it a lot easier for that handover if you have staffing changes. CTMS is really the ultimate participant tracking log because we have privacy and security approval to store all patient identifiers and link them to your study IDs. And then it dovetails nicely with other platforms like REDCap and whatnot if you're using that for other data collection. So it's a great place for that participant tracking. Electronic document storage, the idea here to replace that room full of paper binders with a fully electronic trial master file or investigator site file for improved oversight. And this is really one of the keys for supporting audit readiness. BC Cancer has mandated the use of eDocs for all of their trials. And I think this is one of the primary reasons that our pediatric oncology team was interested in using the CTMS. Hopefully, if Hina makes it, we'll learn more about that later today. You can keep all your mandatory trial documents easily accessible and up to date by setting expiration notifications. There's really effective version control for regulatory documents. And then when you combine that with the ability to send it for validated electronic signature, it simplifies signature collection for delegation, training, and oversight. There is a monitor portal for remote monitoring, which appeals to global sponsors, reduces travel time. And then the technology also includes options for electronic source documents and electronic consent. So jumping into the second program benefit, the centralized support. So most of you who touched the CTMS, oh, look, I see Hina. That makes me feel really warm and fuzzy. Okay, if you've touched the CTMS, you've probably met Melissa Clarkson. So she's just a really key member of the team that is heavily involved in this, one-on-one training that happens here. We've created all of the documentation that's required for training, onboarding, and optimal system use. And our team provides that training and troubleshooting support throughout the life of your use of the system. This is provincially harmonized, so it supports consistent data collection and provincial reporting. So those template builds, if you've worked with Melissa, you've seen the power of taking a copy of your study protocol, which has a schedule of assessments that each participant needs to go through, alongside your clinical trial agreement or budget. And in the back end of the system, she can build a template for you so that in the front end, coordinators can easily track study visits and all associated revenue items. And that's what makes it very easily invoiceable. Coordinator marks it done, and then the item is ready for invoicing. So really great for those studies that have invoiceable, like industry-funded studies. So we are fostering a provincial collaboration here where we have monthly meetings with PHSA and regional health authority CTMS leads. We really want to share those best practices for CTMS use. Moving on to the third benefit, which I already sort of hinted at, is that financial oversight. So this allows you to track those revenues, costs, and profitability. And it's not just useful for industry study because a lot of folks capture just per case funding for academic trials, even just enrollments without any funding. But you can also track grant funding burn rates, associated costs like for lab or pharmacy, and then participant stipends. So there's a financial quality control built in, so you can maximize cost recovery with that first image you see. You can kind of audit the system at various time points just to make sure there's no money left on the table. It's easy to see which procedures were completed, were there any associated costs, have they been invoiced, have expenses been paid, has your revenue been received? And with that elegant invoice creation, as soon as that visit is submitted by the coordinator, the finance team sees what's there to be collected from the sponsor. So it's very easy to reconcile that in the accounting area of the system. And then with the CTMS, in combination with the power of Kai's reporting skills, we've got these financial insights dashboards that help with sustainment and growth. And this financial capability of the system is one of the main reasons that BC Cancer selected RealTime as a vendor way back in the day, because they wanted to manage their complicated industry studies with all these invoiceable procedures and always have that clear visibility over revenue outstanding versus revenue received. So jumping into the business analytics. So this is where we take Power BI to enhance the reporting power of the CTMS. We've got this lovely example of BC Children's Hospital trial portfolio, and it is all interactive. So CTMS data feeds these elegant interactive dashboards, and then you get performance metrics for key stakeholders. And it's not just about like the trial portfolio. We have study level dashboards. We have study startup tracking as we try and optimize those processes. We have safety oversight. You want to know how many SAEs have happened. We've also got a lot of these financial oversight dashboards for different groups. So we've also partnered with the Platform for Analytics and Data team, PHSA's Panda team, to improve our Power BI dashboard publication. The goal is really to get those dashboards into the hands of our decision makers in a nice, easy way. And there's been so much interest in this dashboard development. Kai is now leading some bi-monthly working groups with some of the BC Cancer managers to support targeted dashboard development to drive those operational efficiencies. And he's also been tapped on the shoulder by some of our health authority partners, REBs, and other service providers to create dashboards to monitor or showcase their work. So please reach out with any questions. He's always happy to help. Final benefit I want to touch on is enhanced functionality. So we take care of privacy, security, and validation for all real-time modules whenever they become available. And the goal here is to just always be looking into opportunities to use advanced technology to simplify research processes. So whether you need a complete e-regulatory solution or a mobile app to sign documents from anywhere, website integration, which showcases recruiting trials or allows you to accept study referrals or applications from potential participants, or even a better way to connect with remote or rural participants through a participant portal and e-consent, these modules can really simplify your research. Some of them do have an additional cost, so get some dollar signs there. Mobile app and web integration are things that you can just enjoy as part of the package, but there is definitely some cost for some of these add-ons. eDocs has no cost, up to 100 megs storage capacity, but there is a one-time activation fee if you need larger document storage. eSource, you're going to hear more about this from Hina. It doesn't replace a sponsor EDC or electronic data capture system, but it is an elegant source document solution for improved physician oversight. And so that leads me to this next, because this slide I wanted to throw in here, because the first question we always get asked when we deliver this presentation is, what does this cost? Is this free? So I just wanted you to know that PHSA is committed to reducing the financial burden on investigators and making CTMS an accessible tool for all research teams. We have enough industry-funded, industry-sponsored trials across PHSA to support the provincial use of real-time CTMS at no cost for any of our academic or investigator-initiated studies. And yes, some of those additional modules cost money, but industry sponsors so far have been willing to pay for tech enablement, and many of the teams have successfully used grant funding or other departmental resources, acknowledging efficiency gains, reduced travel for monitoring, and then no more offsite archiving if you have everything digital or electronic. So please reach out to us if you want to learn more about how this could fit in to your budget and make your life easier for conducting research. And now I'm going to hand over to our registered quality assurance professional, Andrew Poznikoff, who is PHSA's quality assurance lead, and he's going to provide an overview of our quality program. So Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate that. I guess just to quickly touch on the CTMS from a quality perspective. So there's lots of cool bells and whistles that come in with using the system, but from a quality perspective, it actually solves some of the biggest regulatory inspection findings, usually related to good documentation practices that the system just naturally solves for you. So being able to manage your ISF on there, which is part of that free eDocs part of things, makes your regulatory binder so much easier. There's signatures in there, training. There's a lot of great things with the system that you don't have to worry about, that you do have to worry about with paper binders. And if there's that barrier to adoption with learning the software and building things out, wanted to key on that part where the CTMS team and quality helps with that build out and support training, and helping you use it properly. So great things that it solves from a regulatory perspective. So I can't recommend it enough. So definitely, if you're thinking about it, if you're trying to overcome barriers, whether it's use, financial, anything like that, do reach out to us, and we can come up with a solution that works for you. So yeah, that's my pitch on CTMS from a quality standpoint. But talking about the quality program, which is really exciting because it's definitely grown and our offerings have developed and fleshed out, is that we want to help raise the bar of quality so that teams are able to follow those regulatory requirements while lowering the bar by education, tool development, and that support, so that we can help you through that. So next slide. Yeah, click one more time. Perfect. So there's three kind of areas here. So Health Canada, regulatory compliance. So again, navigating those regulations. We get lots of tricky questions that involve kind of research, interpretation, that sort of things. We love that kind of stuff. So throw them our ways. You don't have to navigate those big regulatory questions on your own. If you ever have an audit or inspection coming your way, definitely do reach out. We can help you prepare. We can support you during it. I like to liken the quality assurance team as your team's suit of armor and shield, that we can equip you with the knowledge you need. We can review your binders and help you catch and fix anything that an inspector might bring up, and also be there to answer those tough inspection and questions for sure. Adverse event monitoring and reporting, sometimes those severe adverse events come up. Trying to navigate those definitely help. And trial monitoring, which I'm going to touch on a little bit deeper in the next slide. When it comes to clinical trials training, we have that training program that we came out where all your initial sources for training, for equipping your team, we can help you custom tailor a training profiles for each of your staff that meets your team's needs, depending on type of trials that you do, and the role that those team members are going to be doing, so that we can tailor it to their delegations. Access to resources that are available out there, as well as creating your SOPs, forms, and tools to help make your trial life easier. And then, of course, on the quality assurance support side of things, you can engage with us super early. So if you have a protocol and you want a pair of eyes on it, is this going to meet what we need for Health Canada? Is it going to get through ethics? We have templates for protocol build out. We can review for quality by design, which identifies those critical to quality factors. Your risk management planning. So your protocol and your risk management plan should be the first two documents you create, because everything else of your all your other trial documents cascade off of those two things. We can also help you if it's an industry-sponsored trial and you want a look at your binders before your site initiation visit. We can come in and help you shore up any things that you might be missing so you look really good in your sponsor's eyes. And we also have weekly quality office hours. So I love those because they're on Fridays, and you can have experiences during your week as you're doing your trial. Bring it to the quality office hours. We can talk through it. And that's really the best way to learn, I find. All right, next slide, please. Yes, now clinical trial monitoring. So we launched this program, which I'm super excited about because monitoring is required for all regulated clinical trials. So yes, if you're doing an industry-sponsored trial, they're going to be sending you their own monitors. But there are times where you have an investigator-initiated trial that might be industry funded, where you need to come up with this. Academic trials for sure. Whether that's academic from another center or if you're starting your own homegrown investigator-initiated trial on campus, you must have monitoring. And there's no way around that, unfortunately. So we're excited to be able to provide a fulsome monitoring package. So, your site qualification visits, documenting that properly. There's lots of sponsor responsibilities that get fulfilled through these monitoring processes. So qualifying visits, your initiation visit, your interim monitoring visits, and your closeout visit. And that can really be fleshed out per protocol, what that looks like. And monitoring is really one of those principal quality control activities that really bring GCP to life, right? So making sure that the well-being of participants are protected, that your trial data is accurate, complete, and verifiable, so that at the end of your trial, you want monitoring. If you're not getting monitored, and say you're in an academic trial, you want to be monitored. You want to reach out to that academic institution, be like, hey, where's our monitors? We want to make sure we're doing this well, because you don't want to get to the end of the trial and realize that things weren't done in a way that allow you to analyze the data coming out of your site. So this really helps with that. Those are the checks. Monitoring is not a scary thing. It's really a helpful thing to make sure that your conduct's running well. It's education opportunities so that your team's always getting better. So, and importantly, it has to be performed by somebody not involved in the trial conduct. So there is a tiered costing model to that, but making sure that it's based off of funding source to ensure that regardless of, say it's a clinician investigator sponsored trial, it's not dependent on their ability to pay, but it's tiered based on available funding. So that's monitoring itself. And of course, all the quality assurance things that we talked about earlier, that's all, complementary. That's part of PHSA core funding. Any quality assurance activities that you engage us with don't come at any cost. It's just specifically for monitoring. And even if you have zero funding at all, you had a seed fund that got all used up, still do reach out to us and we can work with you to make sure that you're compliant, because that's one of the most important priorities.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. That's excellent. So I just wanted to leave you with the dream team here. So these are, the individuals who are there to support you from a CTMS perspective, quality perspective, and then Kai for data analytics and reporting. So again, reach out to us anytime if there's anything we can do, or even if you want some clarity on what it is we can do for you. We'd love to have those fact-finding conversations to learn about your research and see how we can support. So next, we're going to jump in to the thing that we've all been waiting for, which are those, key stakeholder stories from individuals who have really been change agents for their groups and have leaned into acknowledging that, the pain of adopting a new technology has some long-term benefits. Ideally, I hope that's what you're going to hear today. We're going to start off with Grace Tam, who I'm really pleased is able to join us today. We first met her through her work managing studies for the pediatric oncology team, but she's now moved into the research manager role for dermatology, and she has been amazing to work with, and I look forward to hearing about her experience with the CTMS for their group. So Grace, welcome.
You, Heather. I'm so happy to be speaking about our CTMS experience. So in dermatology, we are starting up a new research program, and we sort of embraced CTMS from the start. We saw its success in pediatric oncology, and we really think it could help us in successfully coordinating trials. So from my experience for the implementation, the investigators were very supportive of the system. Although it is another platform for them to keep track of, we found that explaining the purpose of the CTMS for the investigators and having a project manager from the CTMS team come and do a demo for them really helped them understand how it is useful for them and how is it valuable for them, especially in the electronic signature ability that CTMS has that I will touch on later on. Onboarding for the CTMS was very easy and simple. It was just one signature sheet and a verification of an ID, and it could be a team member of that does that. And I also learned that the CTMS lead for the research site can learn to onboard as well to help speed up and facilitate this process, and also take some load off of the CTMS team that manages for all of PHSA. I found the most beneficial aspect of the CTMS was the flexibility in how your team can use it and for the different roles, and to also suit the study needs, or if your study is industry sponsored, how they may want to use those functions. So for example, participant tracking is useful for the coordinators, finance tracking is useful for the managers, and then also eDocs for the regulatory portion. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then next, I'll speak more on the participant tracking function. So RealTime assists with participant tracking in terms of having Outlook calendar invites that can remind you of upcoming visits, or they can even help calculate visit window calculations. I find using the built-out study template that Heather mentioned as another reference or a checklist when preparing a study visit, along with the protocol, as a very beneficial resource. And also, I wanted to again mention the bonus for those who manages finances. You can just tick off the activities that was done in those visits, and it really helps streamline the financing process, especially when the one doing the visit may not be the same person as the one that ends up managing the finances. So it really helps cover the gap on that portion. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then my last thing that I wanted to touch on is the eDocs, where the investigator site files are stored, the delegation log, and other regulatory items such as training certificates. I found this maybe to be the most useful part of CTMS in reducing paper, but also I think the signature chasing process. I think if you're a research coordinator, everyone experiences chasing for wet-inked signatures, and it uses a lot of time, and it's not fun for us, it's not fun for the doctors. And I find that having an email sent to them is the easiest way, and these signatures are compliant to regulatory guidelines, which is great. And there's a sign on the line feature that CTMS has that's similar to Adobe signatures that I find very, very helpful in having the signature exactly where you want it. And that also, the sponsors like that as well if you have industry sponsored trials. And then another point I wanted to touch on with the eDocs is that the study monitors, if you have any external monitors, they can access the study via a monitor portal where they can only see whatever, I think just what you give them access to. And I find that to be very helpful, especially as industry sponsors are switching to central monitoring and they don't always come on site. I think this really helps streamline the resources and the time spent preparing for monitoring visits. So I indicated there lots of time and lots of paper saved. You no longer have to deal with what's like visualized in that picture, just a bunch of paper, especially as we're limited in space at this time on campus. I think having an option to have things electronically is great. I only found a challenge in having a hybrid system. It is not, CTMS doesn't necessarily allow you to go paperless. There's still some running logs that I found have to be remained on paper, such as a monitoring visit log. I think monitors don't have access to sign on the CTMS. So there is a possibility of having some things on your ISF on paper. And I just found that a little bit challenging to making it a very clean approach. You will have to have a really good table of contents for your ISF. And Andrew's quality team has been very helpful for us in setting up a hybrid ESC EIS system. So I would totally contact them if you were thinking of doing this. Another challenge I found is that some industry sponsors do not want to go with the EISF system at the moment. They're still a bit lagging in adopting this new system, but you can utilize other aspects of CTMS, such as the financing and the participant tracking still for your study. And I would suggest you talking to Heather's team to see how you can still utilize this, even if when you're working with sponsors are not very open in the, at least the eDocs portion. Yeah, so thank you. That's my experience.
Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing your story, and lovely to hear what you're up to there. So we're going to switch over, and Jessica, thank you for your message that suggests we do have Travis. So we're not missing anybody here. So next up, we're going to introduce you to Travis Bolter, who has been research coordinator for the past 6 years, working in complex chronic diseases at Women's Hospital. And he's going to talk to us about CTMS use as it pertains to a long COVID trial that they're working on, and they've also been using our monitoring services. So hopefully we can get some insight from Travis and his experience.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Travis Bolter. I hope everybody can hear me okay. We're playing a little bit of game of phone tag in terms of getting me to be able to.
We can hear you, Travis.
You can hear me, perfect. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the experience that the low-dose naltrexone clinical trial has had with using CTMS. But first, I wanted to kind of give a quick backseat about what our trial is. Our trial is maybe not the standard type of trial you might encounter. So I figured it might be useful. So our trial type is a phase 2 investigator-initiated clinical trial, looking at naltrexone at low doses to treat PCFS, which is our term for long COVID. So it's a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. We're aiming for 160 participants, and the trial length is about 16 weeks on treatment. In terms of location, this is where CTMS is really shined as a tool for our team. Is that we have a remote study, and we are, as previously mentioned, a mostly paperless form of documentation. So we use CTMS to document almost everything. There's only things that are not documented through CTMS. Trial group fatigue with the study drug. So you can hop over the next slide.
I think you're breaking up a little bit. Is there anyone else hearing any volume challenges here?
Is the audio coming through, or is it kind of crackling?
Oh, we got you back for a moment, Travis. Okay, keep trying. Thanks.
Can't hear me anymore. I'm not sure. On to the next slide.
Okay, experience slide is up. Tell us about it.
Thank you. This one was everybody on our team has had a different experience related to using CTMS. I shouldn't say different, but everybody had kind of the components that they liked more than others, right? And so I wanted to ask our team, what was your favorite feature of CTMS? How did you like using it? Those kinds of things. And so, foremost for myself, as strange as it might seem, one feature that I thought was really incredible with CTMS is actually the audit trail feature. And so in CTMS, you're able to look at the state changes that happen to any document that's been put into CTMS. And from a coordination perspective, when you're trying to figure out if what has happened to a particular document or how a document ends up in a particular state, even though the audit trail is often used for, maybe auditing or a monitor to look at what's happened, it's also useful as a coordinator to be able to look backwards in time and get a really detailed account of what happened to your documentation. So I found that incredibly valuable. The next thing that was a highlight for us is the CTMS visit tracking and visit scheduling. So this has been an integral piece of our trial in that we've, because we're a remote trial, we are scheduling every single visit type scheduled through CTMS and scheduled with the calendar function. So that means that we use CTMS to make sure that we know when visits are happening. We pre-schedule visits and then send those calendar invites to our participants so that we can meet with them via Zoom or or a phone call, those kinds of things. So it's allowed our team to kind of like really keep good track of like when things are coming up. I guess the thing that I kind of relate to that is the scheduling through CTMS and just being able to stay in the same platform for the scheduling and the visit tracking, not having to navigate between different places. We have integration, which has been really useful for being able to look at the data, like basically looking at the data and how those things interact with our with CTMS. Next person I talked to was Erin Cook, our manager. And so I asked her what her favorite features are, and as has been previously mentioned, Health Canada compliant signatures is a really big one. So our team is able to obtain signatures from anyone on the team, regardless of where they are. So that's been really useful for, we have a QI who occasionally travels to the United Kingdom, and we're still able to obtain signatures from our QI on documentation, even though they are an entire ocean. And then the electronic delegation log, it makes both updating the log and understanding where everybody is at extremely useful. And then the eDocs tool for obtaining signatures, but also for we use it to obtain signatures. We also use it to information related to, that could be things like adverse events, that could be things related to our trial, we use it for absolutely everything. So it's an integral piece of our trial. Next person I asked was Jamie, first of all, our research assistant, and she said that her favorite features were the visit tracking page, the ability to see the status of any participant all at a glance. And so this was kind of a recurring theme with our research assistants as they were using CTMS. They found it really valuable to look at CTMS from the like having an at a glance kind of overview of where are participants at, what visit has somebody completed or not completed, and those kinds of things. Also, a lot of hidden features in CTMS that are really cool. That would be like participant profile creation and rescreening. So our team didn't know initially that there was a rescreening feature in CTMS, but it turns out CTMS allows you to do rescreen, and the rescreening feature is really clean, and it allows you to keep a really good and clear understanding of the difference between your two profiles for the same participant who is rescreened. So that's really useful as well. And then I think the last thing I'll mention for Amy was reconsenting, tracking, and consent and deconsent. And the useful thing here is that CTMS makes it really easy to understand.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Travis. I don't know if you can lean towards the mic or speaker a little bit more.
As close as I can get, unfortunately. I think so the last thing I'll mention just for Neve, our research assistant, she really liked the red flag comments. It was a really useful tool for identifying anything that we need to communicate between team members. And so it shows up as a big notification right on the page when you click a participant. Adverse event and protocol deviation tracking, we found a lot easier in CTMS because we did it all through CTMS. And then I think the last thing, and Neve really highlighted this, is we found it incredibly easy to gather information. The platform as a whole incredibly. So that's been the experience for our team.
dropped off there a bit. I'll switch slides and then maybe we'll just show this experience with the monitoring services. Do we still have you there, Travis? Oh. Erin, if we lose Travis, are you available to just be put on the spot and speak to this a little bit?
I could attempt to read the slide because I didn't prepare Travis prepared for all of this. Here we go. Having a trial monitor attached to the PHSA quality team provided efficient information gathering for regulatory requirements. So having an on-site monitor was helpful because they knew all of the ins and outs of what's required for our site anyways. Found her very knowledgeable and she helped to identify problems even as an experienced research team may overlook or misunderstand. She helped us in fixing issues related to regulatory requirements and making sure the study was compliant. She found a couple of things that we totally overlooked, or just issues with documents where a statement was in the wrong spot and it made it look like the wrong person was attesting to something. So just catching things that were intended to be a certain way but looked a different way. So her close eye on those things were really helpful. Overall, she carefully reviewed all trial documentation and provided very specific and reasonable solutions to any issues that came up. We felt that our monitor was very professional and constructive, even in areas where recommended changes were made. So we just enjoyed everything about our experience so far. Sorry.
Really appreciate that, Erin. And Travis, thank you so much for your patience. And just so everyone knows who joined a little bit later, this is not on Travis. This is on some Zoom connectivity issue with the BC Children's and Women's VPN or something beyond my understanding. So technical challenges, and thank you both for pushing through. Sorry to put you on the spot, Erin. You were amazing. So we're going to move on to our next story here, and this one is from the pediatric oncology team. So Hina, who's joining from Grace's office because again, similar technology challenges. So thank you guys for your persistence to make this work. And Hina is just an extremely experienced research nurse from the UK, and she's the DBL lead for this pediatric oncology team. And she has been just a real key change agent and early adopter of this technology. We've really enjoyed working with Hina to get CTMS up and running for their group, and are they ever leaning into this? So they are now running more eSource studies than BC Cancer, and she's going to share some of her experience with us today. So thank you, Hina, for being with us.
Thank you, Grace, and everyone, and apologies for the IT, I guess. So I have several slides, but I'm going to whiz through them. So next slide. Just going to provide a quick overview of our experience with CTMS as a department. So this is not all on me. This is very much a teamwork thing. So I want a full disclosure there. And we're going to talk about some of the things that have already been talked about, which is the financial management, some of the lessons we learned, some of the advantages and some of the barriers that we also encountered, and what our next steps are as a department. Okay, so next slide. And this is a diagram displaying what we've done. So CTMS is implemented for 75 studies within our department. We initially opened with 55 academic studies. Currently, we have 22 being worked up to be opened, and one study is completed. So how on earth did we do, or did our regulatory team do 55 studies? Basically, we are part of the Children's Oncology Group Consortium, and we used to have what we called a paper master delegation log, which included several members of the team, like up to 50 plus, where we had to get wet ink signatures. It was unmanageable and untenable. So what happened was that using the CTMS system, we individualized those templates. So those studies became an individual studies, and then there were individual delegation logs for each study, so that we didn't have to manage, or the regulatory team didn't have to manage a master delegation log and provide training for everybody, for everything, when it wasn't required. So now we have individual delegation logs for each study within the CTMS, and what we call was during the implementation phase, a shell was built, which included the delegation log and training. Moving forward, we are the regulatory team, Peter is the manager, and his team are looking to upload more of the documents as part of the ICF as well. But there is a 100 megabyte restriction. So there is that for some studies that might not be enough. So there will be a paid aspect to that. So he just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. And this is what our delegation log looks like on CTMS. So you've got your delegated duties, you've got the PI signatures, you've got a date and timestamp. So if we were to be asked by a monitor, how can you tell us that this person was on the delegation log, and when did they come on? We have that date and timestamp to say they didn't conduct study activity until they were signed off by the PI. So it's really, really easy to use and easy to show. And then this is a diagram of what it looks like on the CTMS system. Okay, next slide. So this is something that we had to do in the background. So as you can see that we had 55 studies initiated on CTMS initially. We went from one master delegation log to 55 delegation logs. So everybody was like, well, what am I delegated to do? What am I allowed to do? What are my delegated duties compared to this PI compared to this PI, or this physician compared to that physician? So there's a lot of background work that had to happen. So we've created a master list, which obviously you can't see, but it highlights to each individual on the CTMS what their delegated tasks are for what study. And this is kept up to date by the regulatory team. Next slide. And then this is just a idea of what it looks like for each training. So somebody gets a training record, what they're supposed to be training on, and then how they sign off on the training. And that's done for every single study, which is 55 initially, and now we have 75 activated. So yeah, a lot of work from the regulatory team. Peter wanted to highlight again the things that have already been mentioned, the invoicing and the oversight benefits. And Heather, you mentioned that at the beginning as well. So this has been an extremely valuable part of CTMS. Even though majority of our studies are academic and they're per patient rather than per activity, it's still really important that when the template's built, the CRA will then click yes, that this was done, and then it will be a per patient reimbursement. And specifically very important for industry studies when the whole template's built with the finance backing, because as soon as we do that tick, then the invoicing happens rather than all the hunting that had to happen in the past. Okay, so this is the next bit of eSource. So once we were once we started using the CTMS for eDocs and delegation logs, we learned about the functionality of eSource. We knew that it was coming through the PHSA privacy, and it was getting approved soon. So we were one of the early adopters, because we were like, hey, we want our paper documentation, our paper charts. Sometimes for pediatric oncology patients, they will have several binders as one of their research charts. We used to do ghost charts along when there wasn't CST Cerner, but now there's CST Cerner. We would continue to do ghost charts. So that was a problem for space. There was a maintenance burden. There was a potential risk for document loss. And what was our solution? Using eSource. We had to go through an approval process, like Heather mentioned, that this is the cost. There's an additional cost to this. So we had an internal approval, and we used some sort of funding. We got a funder that paid for upfront funding for several studies. For academic studies, it's a departmental cost, like I mentioned, but for industry studies, we are costing that to the industry. So it's part of our model now to always invoice the industry. It's part of our startup that this is how much it costs, this is what we do, and this is how much you pay. Okay, next slide. So what did we do for eSource implementation? We scoped the project, we did some training on the platform, and then we had several internal meetings. We planned a workflow. How were we wanting eSource to work within our original workflow? Did we want it to mirror paper charts, or did we want to use it as source? And we decided that it would be a combination. So we are integrating CST Cerner records within eSource. So we're uploading documents, but also creating source documents as source. And then the templates were created with the CTMS team. I can't thank the team enough, because without you, we would not have been able to do this. And that's for eDocs and that CTMS initial implementation, and for eSource, because without your support, this would not have been possible. And then we continue to have ongoing support and troubleshooting. Next slide. So what did we do? Because we wanted to start small to make sure that we did it correctly, and then we learn from that, and then how we move forward. So we selected one study to build eSource for. We built the template with the CTMS team. We had one-on-one training for the clinical research coordinators and the attendings and the clinical team, and we enrolled our first patient using eSource. Next slide. And then what did we learn? So we learned from that pilot study that to expect form revisions during early use, and that's expected. Having a pilot helped build for future templates. The one-on-one training was time intensive, but extremely effective. And a stepwise rollout was really helpful. So what's the experience right now? So research staff said that it was simple and easy to navigate once they were orientated on the use. There was no need to print source documents. Investigator e-signature requests were efficient and preferred. eSource is preferred over traditional paper binders for lots of different reasons. One of them is, printing and storage, but also efficiency, because you just upload and download. The one-on-one training was valuable for onboarding. One of the suggestions was clearer instructions for downloading from CST to Cerner would benefit new staff. So we'll take that on board for future. The clinical team's experience and feedback was that electronic sign-off is easier. Sometimes it's harder to track and trend adverse events, but I think that's more of an experience thing, because physically you have everything in front of you, whereas this is clicking buttons. And I think with time that will become easier. It's much more efficient than paper sign-off. Workflow, the physicians felt it was neutral. They still had to do the work, but it was just easier. It was extremely helpful to have research nurse clinician support for initial sign-offs and when they're learning to use the platform. The thing that they mentioned was that they get a lot of real-time notifications for eSource. And the eSource ones are not easily identifiable. So that's the next step that I want to work with the CTMS team, is to say, how can we do that? How can we make eSource notifications highlighted to be different to general standard real-time notifications? So that's, I think that we need to investigate how we can do that. And all of the physicians said the one-on-one training and in-time support was critical in addition to the pre-education and training. Okay, next slide. So we've had 3 studies monitored externally, so 3 industry studies being monitored so far for using eSource and eDocs. So eSource was described to be straightforward and efficient. It's easy to locate and review the source documents within the platform. Source data verification was really efficient, and the overall comments were that eSource improved efficiency and of source documentation monitoring. So where are we at now? So currently we have 7 studies using eSource. We have 9 builds underway, and our plan is to strategically roll out these 9 builds because we don't want to overload the clinical team in one go. But our goal, our ultimate goal, and I'm hoping that we'll get there by the end of the year, beginning of next year, is to have every single treatment study using eSource moving forward. Our next step is to consider the Engage platform and e-consent and patient documentation using that platform and website integration for study updates to patients. We continue to refine our work and our forms based on the user feedback.
Thank you, Hina. That was fantastic. Thanks, everybody. So it sounds like this is a global Zoom problem. So really appreciate everybody trying to make this happen today. And thank you all for your time. We really don't have time for questions or comments, although we would love to have that further discussion. So please do reach out to us and let us know how we can help. And thanks again to the organizers for hosting us today. So have a great afternoon, everybody.